Hello everyone, we are from Group 2. I will introduce our group. We have 5 members. They are Meron Latu, Pugo Prasetyo, Ervi Desi, Deliski Valentika, and I Gita Meangela. Now we are going to present our topic. Point 1 will be explained by Pugo Prasetyo. Point 2 will be explained by Meron Latu. Point 3 will be explained by RVDC. Point 4 will be explained by Deliski Valentika. Our topic is the ME policy and bilingual in ESS. There are 3 questions I wanna give you before we start today's presentation. Number 1, have any of you ever entered a school with international standards? If yes, what's the difference between school in general and the national curriculum? Number 2, is your junior or senior high school implemented English as the majority of language? Number 3, what is your opinion about school with the international standards? Please answer 3 questions based on your opinion or experience. Thank you.
Next, I will explain about research background. The effects of globalization and the global spread of English have created a phenomenal demand for the mastery of English around the world. In fact, Hamid notes that discourse connecting globalization, English, and national development have led developing nations to enhance their commitment to English. In Indonesia, this commitment was reflected in the establishment of the International Standard School or ISS policy in 2007. Coleman stated that the policy generally aimed to transform selected or the best of the best public schools to meet international standards. The goal of ISS policy is to produce globally competitive students at the primary and secondary levels. Next, let's move to the 3 types of international school. International education is not a new phenomenon in Indonesia. Prior to the ISS policy, there were at least 3 types of international schools. The first and perhaps the oldest one is one that Coleman has termed as True International Schools, or TIS for short. TIS serves the pedagogical needs of children of expatriates working in Indonesia. The teachers and students are all expatriates. Coleman stated that they rarely open their door to Indonesian nationals, although recently Indonesian students were allowed to apply. The second type of international schools were Indonesian Private International Schools, or IPIS. IPIS serves children of extremely wealthy Indonesians as well as expatriate children. The third type of international school is National Plus Schools. As the name indicates, these schools combine the national curriculum with an international curriculum of their choice. According to 4D, that the number of National Plus schools has grown substantially in the past 10 years. But how graduates of these schools perform in terms of national and global competitiveness remains unknown to the general public. Next, we will move to the next presenter.
Now we are gonna move to research and its result. The research aimed is to explore and understand the way the participants framed the events and the strategies that they use to navigate amidst the English medium instructions policy. To collecting the data for the research, the researcher interviewed 12 ESS teachers who was already teaching in 2 ESS in a small town in Central Java. The interviews were audio taped and transcribed. The data were analyzed using content analysis, and there are limitations to the data analysis. For these interviews, there are also 4 important questions that the researcher asked for the participant. The first question is, ask the teachers about their perceptions of the ESS policy. The second, the teacher's experience in implementing the policy. The third, the extent of different training that they had participated. And the last question is how they coped and navigate through the ME program and adapted their teaching in response to the ESS language policy. Based on the answers that the researcher got, there are some important parts that highlighted. The first one is ambivalent or the strong disagreement. So, based on the interviewed, almost all of the teachers state that they are not agree with the implementations of English medium instructions in international standard schools. The second one is under considerable moral pressure. This is show that some of the teachers decided to consider their limits in using English for teaching other subjects such as math or physics. So these teachers decided to tell the students about their limits. The last important part is the teachers, as the civil servant, have to follow all the government's rules. So even this was new for those teachers, as the general teacher, they have to responsible for their work as the civil servant. So they work for the government and they have to follow the government policy. So this is the example from Mr. Yono as physics teacher who using English in teaching physics. So he defines his past efforts not in terms of improving the teaching and learning process, but behaving according to the government standard and expectations. So he said that tries to give my best as expected by the government. So Mr. Yono, even if he faced so many problems struggling in implementing the English medium instructions policy, he still tried his best for the government policy. The second part is the teacher strategies in negotiating the ME policy. The first is centralizing English input through the use of ICT. So the teacher used technology to support their teaching. For example, they use PowerPoint presentations for explanations and also showing example through pictures or videos, so the students can easily understand the materials. The second is surviving the ME policy through code switching into Indonesian. So they use bilingual technique while teaching. The teacher used 25% English and 75% Indonesian for first year, and second year 50% English and 50% Indonesian, and for the third year they use 75 English and 25 Indonesian. And the last strategies is negotiating the ME policy through expressing linguistic vulnerability. So they are already told the students that they cannot use English as well. So they try their best even if sometimes they are struggling with the grammar or the vocabulary. This is the example from Mr. Dono, who is teaching physics using English. So he had a lot of troubles teaching physics in English. Some of them it's mean the teachers are poor grammar structure, new words for physics lessons, and sometimes students was laugh at him. But for him, it is not important because he know The teaching's goal is to make the students understand the content of the material. This is example from the teacher strategies in point 3. So they are not really care, even if they are not really can use English as well, but they have to make sure that students understand, students get the point of the material.
Okay, thank you, Marion, for your explanation. I want to explain about conclusion of the research. In general, teachers do not accept by implementation of the EMI policy as an SSI requirement in their schools, but because of their self-awareness as a civil servant, they must follow the policy from the government. They have to do the best effort to support government policy, although they do not receive sufficient training from the government on the implementation of AMI. And then the explanation is through an interview analysis of 12 teachers. The study offers about how 12 teachers apply macro language policies, because it deals with SDI policies in Indonesia, most of them because on a macro level perspective.
Okay, so I will explain our opinions about this AMI policy, and we think this policy is not effective because the misunderstanding of the concept. For example, Mr. Yono was a physics teacher who was often worried about a misunderstanding a concept of physics would happen if he was teaching in English. He's afraid his concepts and explanations are inappropriate with material when his students listen to him. That made him use much more Indonesian to explain physical concepts that he could not explain in English. The second is unclear material and explanation. For example, Ms. Rani's comments say that she often failed to finish the syllabus national government material set because she focused on ME policy that require English, that makes the material inadequately conveyed to the students. Especially with her limited ability to explain English, is a challenge for Ms. Rani to explain the material. And the last opinion is lack of understanding of students. For examples, Ms. Warni often used Indonesian in explaining her material because she believes that the most important thing is students understand, because the national exam is the next student's education qualifier, as well as Mr. Yono, who sometimes uses the wrong grammar in teaching because he doesn't know how to say or explain physics in English. But he always tells his students what's important is that his students get the point. And for the group suggestions, we have 4 suggestions about this AMI policy. The first is translate method or bilingual method. Based on article, when teacher explain in English, teacher have to explain back in Indonesian. So like explaining twice so that students understand the material, and will take considerable time to use this method. The same is bilingual method that use two language when explains in class, which is English and Indonesian. And the second is using technology as a support. Based on the article, Mr. Eko, a teacher of basic computer science, used Google Translate application or AlphaLink, a calculator-like bilingual dictionary, to teach. And also, Mr. Eko used PowerPoint slides because ME Policy provide LCD projector and a laptop each class, so students can understand clearly. And the third is providing more examples. Based on the article, the teacher provided glossary with vocabulary according to material to be studied at the beginning of the class, as well as a summary in English of material being shared through PowerPoint slides so that students could read in class. And the last suggestion is explaining using gesture and act, like say greetings before class begin and closing after class. This example is a simple action a teacher should perform when teaching using AMI policy.
Okay everyone, after we listen to the presentation, we will answer 10 questions that have been created by the group based on the presentation given. We will give a link to answer. Thank you.